Hi and welcome. If you've watched my intro video for the RSS feed system that we're about to build, then you know what a mega system we're going to build to harvest RSS feeds and put them into your data. But the first thing that we're going to need to do is we're going to need to be able to pull RSS feeds off of the web. So what I've done is I've spent a lot of time and made you a awesome little script for which you can do that, and there's going to be a link down in the description that's going to say get the script or something to that nature, and it's going to end up with a URL and a text file. So the text file is really the only way I can give you this without it rendering. So what I need you to do now is if you would open up your HTML editor, and if you're going to pause and take care of that while you're at it. Make sure that you have access to your server, whether it's your local XAMPP or whether it's a remote server. So get your Notepad++, get your server up and running, and if it's remote, get your FTP up and running so you can follow along, and I'll catch you back when you're done. Okay, you're here, so I assume you've got all that going. So what we're going to do is I need you to follow the link that I've given you, and I'm going to, let's see, let me go to tester.txt, I think it is. I'm not sure. Anyway, localhost feed test 2.txt. Okay, that may not be the actual thing, but this is what you're going to see in your browser window from the link down below. What you need to do is just either hit File or Edit Select All, or just copy everything. And you want to select all. Right click and hit copy or control copy or whatever it is you do. Now open up your Notepad++ and create a new empty file with this button right here, and then just paste that into place. And then what you want to do is you want to save that as I'm going to call this test 2, and I'm going to type .php. You can type .php, or you can go down here and select PHP from this drop down list. Now if you look over here on the right, when I save it, it's black on my screen right now, but as soon as I save it, you're going to see highlights of all of the different commands, and the different commented out is going to be in green. The PHP tags are going to be in red, and so on and so on. We've got HTML and all that. So anyway, I want you to put this file, whatever you named it, test2 or whatever, on your web server. And as soon as you've done that, go to your browser and navigate to your web server and type in whatever you named that file. And you will come up with a page like this that says feed tester 1. Now I'll get into explaining what this feed tester 1 is, but essentially most of the feeds that are out there for news run on a certain configuration. And in order to make sure that that's going to work with the system that you're going to set up, you can set up several different pages like this. But we're going to do a testing page so that before we put something into our database, we're going to make sure it's not going to give us an empty result. So let's just find a news station somewhere. I'm going to say Atlanta News, because I've already looked at that real quick and I found one that works. So I'm going to click here. And not all newspapers have RSS feeds, and the ones that do don't always just put them out there easy to find. So let me see where I found the one on this. I know there was one because that's the one I went to. There it is, RSS feeds. Typically they're gonna have this little insignia here, but if they don't, just look for RSS feeds, and you can actually search the page for RSS. And what I've got here is this Dave Chandley's weather blog and this sports blog, and there's just some blogs on here. So I'm going to go ahead and hit the RSS button on that. And your RSS feed is going to look something like this. Now, in order to see if this is going to work with our system, what we want is we want the headline title and a link that we can link to the story, and we also want some information about the story. We may also want author information and a couple of other things that we'll get into with the script. But just in order to find out whether or not this is going to work with that version of our script, we're going to copy this URL from the top, and then we're going to go back to that page that you just made called Feed Tester, and you're going to paste that into there, and then you're going to hit this send button. Now you see what happened here. You've got the title, you've got the description, just like they have on their RSS feed. So now in order to make sure that works, we're going to click on the title and see where that takes us. And that takes you to the exact same story. So you find that this particular news feed is working exactly like you want it to work. And I'm going to back up on that. And so we're going to hit try a new news feed. And I'm going to just put in, let's say Google. And I'm not sure what's going to happen when I do this, but it should show a whole bunch of errors. There you go. So if you see all of this, or if you see nothing at all, you can easily tell that that particular thing you're looking for is not going to work with this system. So then you just try a new feed, you move on, and you just pick up a new RSS feed to go from there. And this is typically what an RSS feed is going to look like on your end. And then if you right click that and you look at the back end of that, view page source, you're going to see an XML. It's going to say XML, what version it is and what type of encoding. And then it's going to go into these nodes here. And the most popular of these nodes is like title. Most of the RSS news feeds that you're going to have are going to have a title node, a content node of some sort. Let's open up this again. And I'll explain exactly how we pull that out of there. So go to your Notepad++ and take a look at this, and you'll see PHP, an opening PHP tag and a closing PHP tag. And then I have to set this output variable, otherwise it'll throw an error down here, and I'll explain that in a minute. So we're going to set this output to nothing. So output equals absolutely nothing. And then on the next line, that line says if is set get text. So down here in my HTML, I've got a form, and as you can remember from that page that I ran, let me go back to that, feed test. This is the form, and there's a text field right here. And as long as there's something in that text field, if there's nothing in there, then it's going to throw an error apparently. But as long as there's something in that text field, it's going to run this command here. So let's go back over here. It's going to run from here on out. So let me explain this down here. Feed, string feed, is this get text field from the text box. So if it is set, the text field, then it's going to run this. XML equals simple XML load file. Now this is a PHP command that says load this file. Now I've left this is commented out right here. So this isn't going to do anything unless you remove these comments and comment this one out and this one and this one. But this is just in here to show you what this is actually seeing, something like this. It's seeing feed equals and then the feed that you put in there pasted from the RSS feed. So this is kind of what this is seeing. So that's why I've got this in here, but it's completely useless. You can take this line out once you understand what's going on. So anyway, XML equals simple load file on the string of feed. So the feed is what you put in down here. So this is going to show, if that feed is working, it's going to show the feed like we saw where you could click on a link and go to the story. If it's not working, it's going to show you a whole bunch of errors and stuff like that, or nothing at all. Then we iterate, or iterate, whatever the word is. We count from 0 to 10, and you can set this number to anything you want to, but for our testing purposes we're going to go to 10. So it starts out at record number 0, and as long as this is less than 10, it increments plus plus, which is adding one more record to the file. So that means that this is going to pull 10 records if it's working the way it's supposed to. Let's see if I can, yeah. So that's going to pull 10 records. Now if I change that number to 5, it's only going to pull 5 records. Since this is a testing script, and that's all it is testing to see if we can pull a RSS feed successfully, then we're going to do something with that in another lesson. This would go way too long if we went through that. Now we start to pull out the RSS or the XML feeds. The first part of this XML feed, if we look at the view source, is going to be channel. So somewhere in here it says channel, and that's the channel. That's the first node of that particular thing. So from channel, we want to pull out the title first. I hate how it wants to drag. We want to pull out the title, which is well, actually this is not the first title, because this describes what's going on here. So we'll take this right here, or somewhere. Let's go down a little further. Title link. No. Anyway, yeah, you've got, that's the end of the title here. So this is description. Okay, item, title. At any rate, this isn't the best example because it's pretty compressed together. I could pull that out, but that'll take a while. We'll get into that down the line. But what you want to do is your first node is going to be channel, and then from there you go into channel item, and then your iterate, because you're going to keep on looping through this and getting as many as possible. And then you go into title, and then down below you'll notice that all of this is pretty much the same, and then you'll go into link, and then it's all pretty much the same, and then you go into description. I've got this string replace on here because I had to get rid of some weird characters, but this is going to be a little confusing to begin with, so we'll just take that out. We'll just work with getting the data at this point. And then down below that is pub date. Now, as you can notice from what we've taken here, we don't have all of that information. We have title, and we have a description, and we do not have publication date. We don't have we have title, link, and description. We just don't have publication date because we're not targeting the publication date, or they're not giving the publication date in that. So we'll get into that when we get into breaking down feeds for the database. But this is just a script you can play with. And if you find a RSS feed, you want to change these things around. For example, where in this RSS feed channel exists, it might say something else, or it might say something different than item. And this is how you drill down into each of the nodes with this minus and then greater than symbol, like an arrow. And this breaks down into the nodes, and then you just go from node to node on that. Now, what we're doing next is we're constructing an output variable, and that output equals, we've got output equals, and then we've put a like a URL string here. We've put in href equals link, meaning that we're linking to the link in the link item, and then we put in header 3, we've put a title, and then we end the link. That's the first of the output. And then down below that we put output equals string description, which shows a description, and then we put a break tag, and then under that we put output it equals pub date, and then we put a horizontal rule underneath publication date. Now, since this particular feed isn't giving us publication date, that isn't showing, but in other feeds you'll probably see a publication date. So anyway, the first of these end closed curly brackets is where this code runs that defines what our variables are. And these are our variables: string title, string length, string description, string pub date, string output, etc. on down the line. And then our second curly brace is where we begin with if is set get text this. If we didn't have this on there, it would throw an error as soon as we open the file. Now, for testing purposes, I'd put this echo output, but we don't need that in here at all. So we'll take that out completely. And then that closes our PHP. From there, I open up an HTML document, and I have a head tag, and I put a title in here, feed test, so that it shows up as a title on my browser. And then come down here to the body, and I put a header 1, so it tells me on the page that this is feed tester 1. Then down below, I've put a link. Now, so that you can call this any document you want to, this link is a PHP command, which is server PHP self. So this link will always, regardless of what you call this file, this link will always bring you back to this file. And you click try a new feed. The reason you want to have this link in place here is because if you use your back button, it'll want to populate the last feed that you put in there. So it's just easier and quicker to just do it like so. And then down below that, we've got echo output. So in case you have put a feed in there and your feed is correct, it's going to echo that output, which is right here. Now, if you hit try new feed, there's absolutely nothing in here yet, so it's not going to do anything until you put a feed in here. So we'll go ahead and paste that feed in there again, and then when we hit send, it's going to echo that output from that feed. So we try a new feed, and we can put a different feed in there, and you're going to come up with different information, provided the feed is structured in the correct way. So let's go back to the script now, and I'll just explain the rest of it. Form action would be the name of this script. So this script is having the form action of itself, so that's PHP server self. We'll get into that in another situation, but for right now, the method is get, meaning instead of post. If it was post, you wouldn't be able to see in the URL bar where you're going. If it's get, you can see up here in the URL bar where you're going to, what your feed address is. Although it's replaced a lot of characters there, you kind of get a sense of what's going on that feed address. Although I wouldn't use anything up here, but it just gives you a visual of where you're going on that and what you're into. So let's go back to this again. And then the next thing, I've made a size of 120. If this bar is too big for you, then just change that size down. Let's see. It's pretty wide because some of these feeds are pretty long, and I kind of like to have a visual reference of what I put in this box. I didn't want a tiny little input box and then you're putting real long feeds in there. But if you're working on a really dinky computer or something, you can shorten that, or you can lengthen it, or whatever meets your needs. This is not going to be a publicly accessible page. This is just a page for you to be able to test feeds and make sure they work. And then you just got a submit button. You end the form, you end the center, the body, and the HTML. So with this in mind, go get this script, download it if you haven't already, put it in your system, and go out and look for feeds that work with this. And also, if you get a feed that doesn't seem to work with this, make a copy of this. That's why I've made this server self PHP. The reason being, you can name this thing whatever you want to. And then let's say you've got feed tester 1, and you've made some changes up here to try and accommodate a different type of XML. You could call that feed tester 2, feed tester 3, or whatever, and just rename this file into whatever those are that you want to rename it to. And then use, If tester 1 doesn't give you a result, put that feed in tester 2, see if you get a result. Put it in 3 and see if you get a result. If you get an RSS feed that's not giving you a result, just go in here and play with these. These nodes, the channel node, the item node, and the title node, this tells you how deep into the XML you need to go. So if you play around with these, you're finally, at some point, you're going to get all of the information that you're trying to get. And then you know that when we go to build the part of this that puts this into your database, you'll know by going to test 1, test 2, test 3, which cron script you're going to have to run on that particular feed in order to get that feed to index correctly into your system. I know that's kind of a lot to swallow. It's probably long for the size of script that this is, and there's probably a lot that's difficult to understand. This isn't exactly the very first entry-level type scripting for PHP, and I'm sorry for that. This is kind of a medium, you got a feel for PHP already type deal, and you want to build something, you know, kind of out of the ordinary. So hopefully this is going to work out for you. If you like what you see, please comment, rate, subscribe, and I will see you in the next video where we'll get into making the databases. Thank you.